Storytelling in literature enables authors to share their experiences, insights, and thoughts that resonate with readers, encouraging them to reflect and respond, consequently conveying a sense of collective identity. By placing disparate pieces of her life into a narrative, Elizabeth Fairley creates a sense of collective identity as she tells the story of falling in love, being promised eternity until reality sets in and she started to see all its faults. This experience is conveyed through her personal and public struggle to challenge the degradation of Sydney. Fairley's article in the Sydney Morning Herald, "I've always loved Sydney, but I'm starting to fear the marriage is over," recounts the story of a once beautiful city being destroyed by overdevelopment, while tapping into the collective identity of people who have suffered a divorce or a breakdown in relationship. The author builds up the identity of the city as well as its inhabitants through the analogy of marriage in an attempt to make sense of her changing attitudes towards the city she once loved. Her relationship with Sydney is framed as a marriage that is breaking down due to the broken promises and resolute unlistening, the bullying, the lies, of politicians and developers, governalpers as Fairley refers to them, as well as the anger of residents and visitors who feel powerless. The use of accumulation not only applies to the story of Sydney, but also suggests Fairley's personal experience of manipulation and emotional abuse. Consequently, this has shaped her personal identity, challenging her to take the high moral ground and get out, not only of the relationship but also of Sydney. The author employs a metaphor to explain the urgency of leaving this abusive relationship. By referring to herself as a refugee, it is evident that she sees herself as someone who has to flee, because she can no longer afford to live in a city changed by greed and this exclusive club. Conversely, Fairley comments on the imperfections of Sydney that is admirable, through the use of personification when referring to the schizophrenic streets. Similarly to Kenneth Slusser's "You find it ugly, I find it lovely," Elizabeth Fairley follows with "These thank God exist," challenging assumptions on city life and the abnormalities she sees as beautiful, indicating that it is through these flaws that gives Sydney its energy and life. However, in the eyes of developers it needs improvement. The contrast of grime-laden air and wedlock uses romantic diction to convey conflict in relationships. Throughout the article, Fairley consistently changes tone from sophisticated to colloquial, which engages and entertains the reader, while simultaneously conveying the seriousness of the matter. This also shows the mixture of people living in the urban environment. Ultimately, Elizabeth Fairley conveys a sense of both collective and personal identity as she tells the story of the unexpected experiences that have led to a reassessment of personal values.